Massdrop is an online group buy site with a large variety of products. Products can reach well below their MSRP, averaging around 50% off. Click the first link in the description to sign up. Hello guys, DarkLord Projects here again, and today we have a $2,500 4K ready gaming PC build. So let's get started. So the CPU is the Intel Core i7-4930K, which is $577. It's clocked at 3.4 GHz, it's 6 cores, it's overclocking ready, and it's LGA 2011. So it's 3.4 GHz, but like I said, it's overclocking ready because it's a K series part by Intel, so feel free to overclock this CPU. It also has 6 cores, which is very beneficial when it comes to gaming, and it's also LGA 2011, the same socket as the motherboard. So the CPU cooler is the Be Quiet DarkLord 3, which is $80. It's fluid dynamic bearing, it's 400 to 1400 RPM, and its sound levels are 8.4 to 21.1 decibels. So this is a pretty quiet but effective CPU cooler by Be Quiet. This is obviously one of their more premium CPU coolers, so it will do a good job of keeping the CPU cool while being very quiet. And it's also great because if you plan to overclock, you have a decent CPU cooler to keep it cool. So the motherboard is the Asus P9X79LE, which is $220. It's ATX LGA 2011, it has 8 RAM slots, and it's an overclocking motherboard. So I was reading a little bit about this motherboard, and I heard it's a great candidate when it comes to overclocking. It's also ATX and LGA 2011, same socket as the CPU, and it does have 8 RAM slots. So the RAM is the AMD RG2133 Gamer Series, which is $185. It's 16 GB, 4 GB 6, and it's DDR3 clocked at 2133 MHz. So AMD does make some pretty decent RAM, but it is pricier. But it is pretty decent for 16 gigs and 2133 MHz. This is pretty top of the line RAM. It should be perfectly fine for running any game. Whatever you throw at it should be perfectly fine. So the storage is the Samsung 850 Pro Series, which is $380. It's 512 GB, it's 2.5 inches, and it's a Samsung made SSD. I still believe that Samsung still makes some of the best SSDs, same with ADATA and Intel. It's 2.5 inches, which is average for most SSDs, and it's 512 GB, which is a pretty good amount of storage for an SSD. So the other storage is a Hitachi Ultrastar 7K 4000, which is $220. It's 3 TB, 3.5 inches, 7200 RPM, and reliable. So 3 TB is more than enough to store anything really. I mean, it's a lot of storage to work with, so this should last you a very, very long time. It's also 3.5 inches, which is pretty much standard for most hard drives, 7200 RPM, which is also standard, and it's very reliable. I heard Hitachi makes some pretty reliable hard drives that don't usually fail on you. So the graphics card is the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 780 Ti, which is $660. It has 3 GB of GDDR5 RAM, it's WindForce, which has 3 fans, and it's clocked at 1.8 GHz. So the GTX 780 Ti is perfect for 4K, it's NVIDIA's top-of-the-line GPU, and it's only $660 compared to like the Titan Black or the Titan Z. But the GTX 780 Ti does a perfect job for 4K gaming. It only has 3 GB of GDDR5 RAM, which is a little bit on the low side for 4K gaming, but should still work fine. It's also WindForce, which has 3 fans. I think Gigabyte does a good job with this because it keeps the card nice and cool during very intense processes. And it's also clocked at 1.8 GHz, which is a little bit above average. So the case is a Corsair Air 540, which is $130. It's ATX mid-tower, it has 2 parts, and it's very large. I really like this case for big builds like this because it has 2 parts, one for cable management and extra parts like drives, and it has the other side which is just like your regular PC case where it could hold your motherboard, graphics card, CPU, etc. So it's split in half for the most part. Obviously the part where you're putting most of your parts is going to be bigger and has the window, and then the other side has more than enough room for cable management, so there should be no problem at all putting this PC together and keep it nice and organized. So the power supply is an XFX P1100BELX, which is $210. Has 1000 watts of power. It's 80 plus platinum certified, and it's fully modular. So it's fully modular, which is pretty great because you could unplug cables and plug in cables that you do and don't need. And if there's any problems with the cables, you could just send the cable to the manufacturer and get that cable back. So that's pretty great instead of taking out your whole power supply. It's also 80 plus platinum certified, which is one of the best certifications a power supply can get. And 1000 watts is more than enough to power up the system. So the overview for this PC build is it's 4K ready and very overkill. So it's 4K ready, so you can play most of your games that has 4K support at possibly high to medium settings. I'm not 100% sure about 4K gaming. You might be able to play games at ultra, but for the most part I think you'll be able to play most games at high. And it's also very overkill. I wouldn't recommend building this because 4K games are still popping up here and there, but not all games have 4K support. So I would just stick with a 1080p build for now, but if you do want to build a 4K PC, I think this build should do perfectly fine. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you later.